Welcome back to the Pittsburgh Sports Saviors. It is February 1st, 2024, Thursday night, about 10 p.m. Lee, how you been? How you doing?
I've been all right. How about yourself, bud?
Pretty good myself. Yeah, not too much going on around here for me.
Yeah.
Guess we got to watch the games on Sunday. What were your
Yeah.
thoughts on the two conference championships games?
Yeah, I
So,
was actually kind of shocked how the Chiefs actually came out on the Ravens. I mean, I thought I had picked the Ravens to actually win to go to the Super Bowl, and they didn't really show up too much. And the Chiefs just came in, and from their first drive, they just seemed unstoppable that whole game. And I think they might have only had maybe two punts the whole game. And Patrick Mahomes, I maybe I got to give this guy his respect now. I mean, he might just be that great of a player. He's so talented, and Andy Reid, such a great coach, and Travis Kelsey. I think he was 11 or 12 targets for 11 or 12 catches. Just he didn't miss anything, and I mean the defense for the Chiefs looked good, and they were just moving down the field. It was amazing, and then you get to that Lions game. I'm thinking, man, okay, the Lions halftime 24-7 over the 49ers. I'm like, okay, they're going to blow this team
yeah.
out. And then there's two fourth downs that Dan Campbell goes for it. And I'm thinking, you're in field goal range, maybe go for it. But I know he's a gambler, and they didn't convert. And 49ers came back. And now we got the Chiefs versus 49ers. Your pick is what you had it last week. And
Yeah,
it's
that's what
going to
I
be
had
the Super
last
Bowl.
week.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I had the Chiefs winning, but I didn't think it was going to go like that. I didn't think the Ravens would go
yeah.
like that. They completely avoided the run game. I
Oh,
think it
yeah.
was under 10 carries for the running backs. That's just something you would never expect from the Ravens. I
Yeah,
mean, as Steelers
yeah,
fans, we get to see the Ravens play a lot, and that's
yeah.
not the style of play they've been successful with for the how many years is Lamar in there now? 4 or 5 years? I can't
I
remember
think about four or
exactly.
5 years. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean
yeah,
that team on Sundays wasn't the team that we've seen on offense, and
no,
they've been blowing
yeah, not
everyone
at
out.
all.
We talked about it. I expected Kansas City to win because I do think they have a good defense, but thought it was going to be a scenario where they had to stop the run to
Yeah,
show off that good defense, but it wasn't. And then, like you're saying, the first half, Kansas City was unstoppable. They did slow
hmm,
down in the second half, but that those first couple drives, it was very impressive to see what they were doing,
yeah,
and they came out
yeah,
and showed why they're the team of the last 5 years or so. This is now their
yeah,
fourth Super Bowl appearance. They got two wins
yeah,
under their belt.
yeah,
I mean, it's impressive what they've been doing.
yeah,
Like you said,
yeah,
Kelsey and Mahomes. I mean, Kelsey breaks Jerry Rice's receptions
yeah,
record
yeah,
for the playoffs, which is
yeah,
impressive. We're talking about a tight end breaking a
yeah,
Jerry Rice record.
yeah. That's
That's
crazy.
pretty
That's
great.
crazy.
And then the Detroit game. We're watching that first half, and you're just this is an amazing game. And then I mean, before the end of the third quarter, we're tied back up, and it's just crazy scenario. I'm not of the. A lot of people want to shit on Dan Campbell and everything he
Yeah,
did. I mean, but for one, that's what they're about. So if you
hmm,
start switching up with your belt in the playoffs, as this other team is coming back on you too, I mean, I don't know how the players are gonna react to that. And people are also just assuming that the field goals were going to be made. One of those field goals was
yeah.
like
Oh,
what?
that's true. No, you're true. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, one of them was a 48 yarder or something like that.
Yeah,
Somewhere
yeah,
close to 50 yards, and people were just assuming that's going to be made. So I mean, it's easy to go and see what happened and say, oh, see, there you go. You got to look. You can't play
yeah,
these analytics and everything like that. But I mean, yeah, congrats. You could say after the fact, but I mean,
hmm,
the Lions have been playing great all year. They
hmm,
obviously play for Dan Campbell, and he's got that whole team behind him. And I guarantee you, he would do the same move at each game in the same
yeah,
scenario. And it's not. I don't think it's going to
yeah,
change him.
yeah. Not at all. And I did see a crazy stat that it said the Chiefs and the Steelers were the only two teams to hold the Ravens to 10 points or fewer, and the Steelers did it
Yeah,
twice this season.
those
Yeah,
did it twice this season. Yeah,
yeah,
people were giving Orlovsky made a tweet out there saying that he hasn't seen the Ravens look like this all year, and then a bunch of
yeah,
Steelers fans were hitting him with the two box scores for the Steelers, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
I think their other loss was to Washington, right? The Ravens.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Had to be a weird game. I don't remember much detail about it, but yeah, I think what Andy Reid's done with the Chiefs, where he's kind of transformed the team from a offensive juggernaut the past few years to a team that relies on their defense, and it's an interesting switch in that. I think people were undervaluing that because that's what during the season the Chiefs lost a lot of faith from a lot of people. No one that really had them going to the Super Bowl about midway through this year. I mean, obviously they were struggling. Kelsey had a couple games, good stretch where he was playing pretty poorly. But I mean, like I was saying last week, Mahomes is still Mahomes. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They're back in the playoffs. I think the 49ers, I mean, everyone's talking about what the Lions didn't do, but I think there is some talk about the 49ers coming back like that. I think that's being lost in the shuffle a little bit. How about you? What are you thinking about the?
Yeah, and I think I've been what I've seen with some of those 49er games, they're more of it seems like they're more of a second half team from what I've seen, even especially in the playoffs. With that Packers game beforehand, they were losing in that game and they came back at the end of the game and came back and won too. So I think they're more of a second half team for sure.
And I mean, people were getting on Brock Purdy earlier in that game, but I mean that second half he was great again.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He had a few passes though. I mean his best pass in that game should have been intercepted for sure.
Oh yeah,
it bounces off the. So I mean there's still going to be haters for Purdy. I think he showed enough that I mean you got to give him something at this point. He's obviously a solid starter in this league, and
for sure.
It's going to be fun to see what happens in the Super Bowl. I don't want to go too deep into the Super Bowl yet, just because we got a whole week next week. That could be our Super Bowl preview. But there has been big news in the Steeler front. The Steelers hired their offensive coordinator. That's Arthur Smith is the guy. He's 41 years old. So I mean, I was talking about a young guy, and initially when I heard Arthur Smith, I assumed he was a little older, and he's not a name that jumped out at me, and I was disappointed at first. What were your first reactions to hearing about Arthur Smith?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed because there were so many I thought were a lot younger interviews that we had with some of the coaches that maybe they could have been a lot better picks. He only had one season with the Falcons, or 2 seasons. I'm sorry, 2 seasons with the Falcons.
He had 3.
3. Okay.
We'll get into that in a second. Actually, I can just say here. So he's been the head coach for Atlanta for the last 3 years. He ended up 21 and 23 in those 3 years. I think he had 7 wins each of those years, actually. And then before that, from 2019 to 2020, he was with the Tennessee Titans as their offensive coordinator. And then he was also on the Titans staff from 2013 to 2018, with the last 3 years of that being as the tight ends coach. I couldn't get past the fact that the look of him, honestly. I don't know. That's not unfair, but I just
I know exactly what you mean.
And everything. It's getting to me.
Yeah.
And I wanted a young, dynamic coach. I mean, he is still a young guy. He's 41 years old. So I think I was just in my head too much with it early on. I've started to move a little bit past that initial reaction to thinking that it might be a decent one. So I'm gonna pull up his time with the Titans. Here are his numbers as the last time he was an offensive coordinator was with the Titans. He had 2 seasons there. The 2019 season, as you can see, he had 23.3 points per game, which was 10th in the NFL, 12th in total yards. And then in that 2020 season, 30.7 points per game, which was 4th in the NFL, and then 3rd in yards. He was 2nd in the NFL in rushing, only behind the Ravens, who had like an amazing rushing attack this year. I think that year they had like 190 yards per rush, but that 168, really impressive. It's obvious to see why he got a head coaching job after these 2 seasons. But what are you thinking about those numbers now that you can look at them and see what you see there?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like he's a decent offensive coordinator, especially with improvement over the 2 years that he did have with the Titans.
Yeah.
I mean, if he comes in and he can put up numbers like this for our offense, I mean, hey, that'll be great because past couple of years our offense wasn't doing anything. So it was actually declining. And if he can actually help us improve it, hey, I'm all for it. Maybe he's a better offensive coordinator than he was a coach, and maybe he still just needs some time doing some other type of coordinating job just so he can get a little bit more prepared to be a coach again for another time down the line. But I was a little disappointed just because he didn't have a winning season with the Falcons, but seeing this is kind of swaying me a little bit differently to feel as though he might actually bring some productivity to the Steelers offense. So, I'm a little excited to see what he can actually bring to our offense this next year's season.
Yeah, another thing from this is everyone goes and says, "Oh, well, he had Derrick Henry and he had Tannehill and all this." Henry prior to 2019, he wasn't the Henry that we saw with Arthur Smith there as OC. His this rushing game improvement wasn't there the years prior, 2018 and stuff like that. Derrick Henry became Derrick Henry underneath Arthur Smith as a offensive coordinator. So that's one thing to look at. The one thing that gets me, maybe it's a little pick, is our run game was successful compared to our passing game going into this year. So you bring in a guy who's the one thing he's great at is the only thing that the Steelers were actually good at last year. So is he going to come in and improve the offense enough? That's my worry because here his passing yards per game is 21 and 23rd in the NFL. Part of that is if you're in the lead and no one can stop your run, why pass? Obviously,
you're right. I hear you on that. Yeah.
2010, they're still third in total yards per game, so that is a little bit of a nitpick, I think. But so he after these 2 seasons, he ends up getting the the Falcons job, and it just did not go well for him. Here are those numbers, same numbers here, but for his time as the head coach for Atlanta. 2021, only 18.4 points per game, which was 26th in the league. The next year, he got that a little higher to 21.5, which was 15th. But then right this past year, 18.9 points per game, again, 26th in the NFL. So those numbers there are not impressive points wise.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people complained about the fact that he didn't utilize weapons well with them. It looks like a lot of that might be anecdotal because they do have like the touches that you expect. Like Bijan Robinson's touches were similar to that of like McCaffrey. Drake London had a lot of touches. He's the receiver that a lot of people. Cal Pitts is a guy who got some touches, but none of them. They're all high draft picks, and none of them performed at the level that people expected. And like Bijan Robinson, that people were expecting him to come in and right away be a top back in this league, and it just didn't happen for him this year.
Yeah. And I think the Falcons were in a little bit of a rebuild as well during this time frame. And, I mean, it's not I wouldn't say it's, when you're a new coach and you're rebuilding, it's definitely harder to try to improve those numbers like that. And, I guess he did the best he could as the head coach for that team. So, I'm hoping that, if he can continue the numbers that he had with Tennessee coming to us as for the offense coordinator, it'll be great for the Steelers. I'll be happy to see I'll be happy to see the offense improve so much better than it has done over the past couple of years.
Yeah, that's the big question. Are we going to get the Arthur Smith from the Falcons or the Arthur Smith from the Titans? I want to lean towards the Titans version. I want to have hope. I want to have faith. And I mean, there is something to those running numbers, those rushing numbers. Even here, the last 2 years, he's had success. They were at 159.9 rush per game in 2022, which was third in the NFL. This past year, they were ninth in the NFL. So I mean, those aren't that bad. But once again, the Steelers were struggling with the pass game for most of the season.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing a guy who's who also has struggled in the past game previously. Is that really the move that you want to do there? They're really going to be
Yeah.
something that can be successful for you.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
But
We will see what happens.
yeah, we'll see what happens there, and I think it'll be fun, at least preseason wise, to have something to look at.
Yeah.
Also, bouncing off of this move, people may look to see who may be a guy that Arthur Smith would want to bring in. And one name I would say is Ryan Tannehill. He might be a quarterback that a lot of people are mentioning since he was there with him at the Titans. First of all, I think that would be a nice pickup. But my question is, are you bringing him to be a backup? Because what has Kenny Pickett shown, or what has Mason Rudolph even shown to say that Ryan Tannehill isn't a better player than them right now?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because if they bring him in, is it, like you said, is it more for competition for Kenny to be better? Because now this is another offensive coordinator he has to try to learn from and try to improve from. What has Kenny really shown, and what has Mason really shown over the past couple of years to say that they're the absolute starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Who's also to say that they're better, like you said, better than Ryan Tannehill? I mean, Ryan Tannehill has a lot of years under his belt as a starter in the NFL. He definitely, I think he started with Miami and then he came to Tennessee. I think it was
in Tennessee,
and he definitely improved. He wasn't as big as he was in Tennessee as he was in Miami. I think that he's definitely a decent quarterback. Like you said, yeah. Is it going to be a backup? Is it going to be more competition for Kenny? I mean, I think this offseason is going to show a lot, and especially the preseason is going to show a lot of who, depending on who they decide to bring in, if Ryan Tannehill is the guy, if they bring him in or not. What's going to happen? Who's going to, anybody going to be upset? Does anybody feel like they're not going to have their job? Who's going to actually be the guy to start for the Steelers and actually prove to themselves that, and prove to the fans and the team that they can actually be a starter. So it'll be interesting to see what the Steelers decide to do this offseason.
Yeah, the benefit of Tannehill is that he's a veteran who can come in and knows the offensive system that we have to assume that Arthur Smith's going to bring in. And if he doesn't win the job over Kenny, he can be a veteran presence to help Kenny out that maybe Mitch wasn't able to do because he really hasn't had the same kind of success as Tannehill has in the league.
Yeah.
And then but the question there becomes, I don't think there's any way that you're bringing Mason and Tannehill in. So I think that's an either or. So here we go, Lee. What would you rather have right now? Would you rather have Mason Rudolph or Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback to compete with Kenny next year?
Oh, man. I think right now at this point, if Ryan Tannehill is available, I think we take Ryan Tannehill. I think right now he's a better quarterback than Mason. Mason definitely showed out those 4 weeks that he played. But I don't think he's better than Ryan Tannehill. I think that Ryan Tannehill would definitely be a better person to pick up and have more competition for Kenny. I think that, I think I would take Ryan over Mason at this point right now.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, with all the great play of Mason Rudolph the end of the season, I mean, I just look like to a guy like Josh Dobbs, who had a good stretch during the season this year, and then he completely fell flat and became the guy he's been for his whole career. And then you would have the same concern with Mason that maybe this is just a nice little stretch. And he's going to come back down to earth. I mean, there was in the past you've had like a Minshew mania where he went on a run for Jacksonville and stuff, and he was solid, I guess, a little bit. He was decent with the Colts this year, but he's not like a starter in this league full time that you can rely on. And you got to question whether that's Mason's peak, maybe that's where he's going to end up. So the question is, how long is he going to stay at that peak? How long can he? I mean. I think it has to be Tannehill. If it's like a either or, I think you go Tannehill. But I mean, obviously, you got to make sure that Tannehill wants to come here and compete. You got to make sure that Mason wants to come here and compete. If he maybe Mason feels slighted, thinking He should have had a chance earlier this year, and he wants to look out on the open market, and
Yeah.
maybe someone will
For
pay him
sure.
something. So those are
For
two
sure.
good questions. The other thing that's come up is it's odd. It looks like Arthur Smith's not going to be hiring any of his own guys. It seems like everyone else is going to be coming back onto the offensive side of the offensive staff. They're going to keep. I don't think Sullivan's official yet, but it seems like they're going to keep everyone else in place. What do you think of that? That he's not bringing in his own guys?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he just doesn't feel as though they're competent enough with the couple of years he had with the Falcons. Maybe he sees that maybe the Steelers, other coordinators, the other guys behind the scenes were a little bit better than what he feels as though what happened in Atlanta. So it'll be interesting to see how.
The way I'm looking at it, Lee, is that it's more like the Steelers aren't letting those guys go, so Arthur Smith doesn't have the opportunity to bring in his own stuff.
Okay.
Like the Steelers, one of the things they did, the Steelers re-signed their offensive line coach prior to the hiring of Arthur Smith, and one of the guys that's out there is Mike Munchak, who was a former Steeler offensive line coach.
Yeah.
And he also has a connection to Arthur Smith, so that's a guy where it's like, if you wait on this and let Arthur Smith make his own decisions, maybe he brings in a guy like that who's more successful at the offensive line position. And I don't know, it concerns me a little that I just think it's another sign that Tomlin might not be good at this hiring thing. This hiring.
Yeah,
process.
I don't know. Either that, or maybe I guess it's either that, or maybe the rest of the Steelers organization feels as though the other coordinators we have are still good at their job. Maybe they just thought that Canada was the only problem, but I don't know. I think you really should bring in fresh new faces and fresh new names for sure when you're doing a reboot and restarting with coordinators and stuff like that. But maybe you're right. Maybe Tomlin just does not know how to do this at all.
Yeah, it's unfortunate if that would be the case, but I mean, who knows? Yeah, we're all just speculating at this point. Maybe it is Arthur Smith who said, I like these guys too. That's fine. We can keep them in here. Maybe he's confident that he'll be able to still put in whatever he's going to put into his offense. It is something to be concerned about, though, for sure.
For sure.
Going forward.
It'll be interesting. Again, it'll be interesting to see when the preseason comes to kind of see how things go, and those first couple games of the season for sure. It'll be interesting to see. I'm also interested to see if they make any other moves over this offseason, bringing in any other players or any other like assistant coordinators. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I let's hold off on players, but another name that has a Tennessee tie to Arthur Smith is Mike Vrabel. Obviously, he would be on the defensive side and come, but he didn't get a new head coaching job. He's a former Steeler. Previously, the Steelers had brought in Brian Flores as like a defensive special assistant. I think that it would be cool to bring Vrabel in for that. I think Vrabel's a great mind. I think he's a good coach. And I didn't expect to get fired this offseason.
I didn't either.
What do you think of bringing him in on the defensive side to help out, kind of like what they did with Flores?
I think it would be great to especially help with what's it? Is it Terrell
Austin?
Terrell Austin. Sorry. I think it'll be great. Like you said, he's a old Steeler. He's definitely a great defensive minded coach. He was a great player with the Patriots. I think it'd be great to bring him in and help as an assistant to help with Austin for sure. Because he just got the extension, and I think it'd be great to help, maybe something to just kind of get him back on his feet, to kind of get himself moving to where he could get another defensive coordinator position or a new head coaching job. So I think it'd be a nice move for the Steelers if they did bring him in to help out on the defense.
Yeah, I really like that, and I mean, I don't see him as a guy who's going to go on to TV, but who knows? Maybe he'll go into that for a year or something. I think it would be a good move. Like you said, being a Patriot, he got to get some tutelage under Belichick, which can never be bad when you're talking about defense. And I really like the way that the Titans played. I mean, they always seem like they were prepared and everything like that. I think he's a good coach. I think I was surprised no one picked him up this coaching cycle.
Yeah, for sure. I am too. I thought that he would have gotten another job already, but I don't know. So, maybe, hey, Arthur Smith, maybe, whisper in Mike Tomlin's ear, bring him in, help us out.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the big signing.
Yep.
We got the Pro Bowl this week. It started tonight. They had the skills
Yeah.
challenge tonight. Have you had any chance to look ahead to the game on the flag football game this weekend? Are you interested in seeing that, or how are you feeling about the Pro
Not
Bowl
at
at
all.
this point?
I'm kind of done with it. The flag football is just, I get it. Yeah, you don't want anybody to get injured. I understand it's player safety now, but I remember the days where they used to play full force tackle football. It was like a regular game in Hawaii. I don't like this whole, let's just go out and play flag football. I don't know. It's supposed to be the best players coming together to play a game. Let's do that. Let's not just, okay, here's a couple flags. Let's go see what we can do.
I do love the irony of about 5 years ago, everyone was mocking the Super Bowl because it was becoming a flag football game, and the NFL decided,
Yeah.
you know what? Let's just actually make it a flag football game, which is
Yeah.
there is something to that, I guess you could say. And but yeah,
Yeah.
I obviously the most famous like big hit was the Sean Taylor hit on the punter.
Oh yeah, on the punter.
Yeah, that was a fun one, and yeah, but it is sad what's come of it as we've aged through the time where the Pro Bowl. We aged through a time where the Pro Bowl seemed to matter a little bit more than it does now, for sure. So
yeah.
and it's every sport really. The NHL's
Yeah.
their All-Star game this weekend. I think they may be the best at it right now. They might be doing it the best out of anyone right now.
Yeah. NBA is a little bit. It's not as it used to be.
It's very similar to the Pro Bowl, yeah.
Yeah.
Not a lot of defense being played there.
Yeah. Yeah. At all. Yeah.
And then
I'm not looking forward to it. So I don't care. Yeah.
I'm just glad that we can yell at clouds finally. We're old enough to start yelling at clouds.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see a scenario where I'm watching it this week.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's something like a highlight or something that happens, I'll follow along somewhere. But I don't see myself getting into that either.
Yeah, not at
but
all.
Fortunately, the next week will be the Super Bowl. I'll be excited to see that. I think we can have some fun with the podcast next week. We can maybe pull up some prop bets and make some choices ourselves. But until then, I don't got much for you. You good?
I got nothing else either.
Talk about this week?
Nothing at all. That's all I got.
Yep. Then I'll see you. Have a good night.
I'll see you. Have a good one. Yep. You too.